Which came first, the chicken or the egg? This question is said to be a logic circle because one perpetually comes before the other. Simply put, a chicken is a product of an egg, which is a product of a chicken, and so on. Therefore, it isn't clear that one can exist without the other first giving birth to it. I've looked at other attempts at answering this, and it just seems like a bunch of scientific yik-yak, to be honest. So I wish to take a different approach, one with a philosophical posture. And for those of you who won't stay for the full explanation, here's my answer. So I submit that the answer to the age-old question is both. They both came at the same time. Now let's observe how I arrived at this conclusion. To start, what do you mean by first? And what do you mean by chicken and egg? I believe the number one reason why this logic circle persists is because we have common misconceptions of these definitions. Definitions being our definers of reality, the invisible molders of perception, the constitutions of existence. Thus, if our vision is tethered to a misinformed mind, then our pictures become illusions. This logic circle ultimately revealing itself as a conflict between perception and reality, illusion and truth, appearance and essence. So what is a chicken? To give an answer that simply describes how it looks, tastes, feels, sounds, or smells is to reduce it to only what can be observed, when in fact there is much more to a chicken than what can be perceived by our limited human perception. For we live in a world of duality, the sense and the nonsense, the conscious and the unconscious. Simply put, the things we can ultimately sense are what's called expressions, and the things we cannot sense are what's called essence. For example, when Labyrinth says, express yourself, he's saying take the unseen essence yourself and make it seen through expression. From this command, we get poetry, dance, books, buildings, robots, any and all things that can be perceived. To further explain, we can sense the expression of a tree, the tough bark and branches with its green leaves, but cannot sense its essence, the author that gives it character, or the consciousness that makes it go. Thus, here we find a different interpretation to the question, what is? The best answer being, it is what it is. But the best term we have for this is energy or matter. Therefore, a chicken is essentially energy that expresses itself to the senses as a white feathery egg-laying bok bok bok. And likewise, an egg is essentially energy expressing itself as an oval object acting as a growth container for chickens. Okay, great. So which came first? This question presents another problem, because to say that something came before another is to say that the two things are separate or detached. But tell me, how do you detach a chicken from an egg? You can't. They are inextricably tied, for they are two parts of one process. If you detach one part in hopes of separating the two, then you end the whole process. I understand that we may look at the two and say that they are clearly separate objects, but this is because we are viewing them in a singular state. But things are not their singularities. Things are a continuous flow of change. For example, you are not who you are today. You are a flow of your entire life. You are the beginning and the end, all wrapped up in the present. To further explain the fallacy of separateness, take the hand and wrist, for example. We say that these things are separate, that they are different. But this is another classic example of how our definitions produce false realities. As Alan Watts observed, we can highlight the difference by pointing to a general area and be well understood by another human, but Mother Nature would be completely puzzled by our explanation. This is because as we zoom in to find a precise dividing line in which to differentiate the two, we find no line at all. So what's really happening is we are perceiving differences between things and labeling them as separate, but this is indeed false thinking. To be sure, the only place in the universe where you'll find separate things is inside the walls of a thinking man's mind, for that is the chief function of the mind. Therefore, this changes how we view the chicken and egg conundrum. What if they came into being at the same time, existing within each other like Penrose steps or the Klein bottle? In other words, what if the potential for both existed simultaneously? So I submit that the answer to the age-old question is both. They both came at the same time. Created for you.